Hey you guys, welcome back to Rocket City Yardstead. So, if you are a returning viewer and you happen to watch the last video, which was a grocery store haul, then you might notice I'm in the same clothes. I am dealing with all of these rotisserie chickens that I bought. We're gonna can chicken, just chicken and broth. We're also going to can some chicken soup that can be used for making chicken noodle soup, chicken and rice. I'm sure there's other things you could do with it. That's what I do with it typically. So I have 5 rotisserie chickens that I need to get processed up. And my first step here is getting a couple of these, their carcasses, into a pot going for broth. So if you've watched other videos, you probably know that I made broth not all that long ago. Maybe a month, I don't know, but I made quite a bit. But I have carcasses, I have all the things to make broth fresh today. And I really don't want to waste the lids on the broth already canned because I'm going to turn around and can the chicken. So we're going to get the broth going. It will be carcasses, onions, carrots, what else? Some basil, maybe some herbs from the garden. Pretty simple, not anything too elaborate here. But I do want to get that going because it simmers for a couple of hours. While it's simmering, I can work on more chickens because I only need 2 to make a pot of broth, and getting all of the veggies prepped for my chicken noodle soup. So that's the plan. I don't think I was quite prepared for how long today was going to be, but I will be super excited to have all this food put up on my shelves. Have chicken easily accessible. I don't know if you guys were with me when I made the chicken enchiladas, but I cooked chicken that day because I didn't have canned chicken. So I'm going to be really happy to have canned chicken back on my shelves. One of the things I really like about using rotisserie chickens for this is they're already roasted, so your bones are already roasted. And I'm getting double duty. I'm getting meat and broth. Because if I just bought, skinless, boneless chicken breasts or something like that, I just get the meat, but I wouldn't get the broth from it. And I could buy raw chickens, but it's been a while since I did the math on that. But honestly, it always came out in the past when I did the math much more economical to use the rotisserie chickens. I don't know if you guys have ever paid attention to economics really, but I remember reading this article where they were talking about Sam's and Costco and the $5 rotisserie chickens and how both companies actually lose money on the rotisserie chickens. And they call it a loss leader. And it's because they're willing to lose the money on that. They know that they're losing money, but they expect that people will come in to get the rotisserie chicken and they'll spend money on other things. So that's why they're so economical. And I don't know about you guys, but I actually go into Sam's with a list. So I don't buy extra things that I don't mean to. Sometimes I forget to buy things I was supposed to. I did that this time, and I'm actually going to have to go back, which is a little bit of a bummer, but it is what it is. There's no real special way to do this. I'm sure there are people who take their chickens apart much more beautifully than I do, but I just sort of get in there and pull bits off and chop it up. Once I get 2 chickens done, we'll come back and I'll show you what I put into the broth. All right, you guys, so I've got a couple of my chickens all pulled apart and their carcasses, their bones are in my pot. So I'm adding a couple of carrots, a couple of ribs of celery, 3 of my very small homegrown red onions, and then we are going to add some peppercorns. Some are around 20 peppercorns. I'm not actually going to count these out. We're just going to get a nice palm full. Some bay leaves, about 4 bay leaves. 2. And we're going to add about 2 tablespoons of salt. So it's very humid here and my salt is getting all clumpy. And then to all of this, I'm going to add a splash of vinegar and 32 cups of water. The vinegar is supposed to help draw out a lot of the minerals from the bones. You can use whatever kind of vinegar you want. I'm just using white vinegar because that's what I've got on hand today. So that's literally all I'm doing with the vinegar. And now I'm going to get my water in here and I'm going to get this up to a boil and then let it simmer for a couple of hours. My chicken is all diced up. I've got close to 6 quarts if the measurements in my bowl are correct. So while the broth is going, I can work on my carrots and celery and onions. And so I've already got these peeled and washed up. I need about 2 and, let's try not to throw carrots around. I need about 2 2/3 cup carrots, the same for the celery, and then I need about 1 3/4 cups for the onions. I have no idea how many carrots this actually is going to take. I started by cleaning up 4, but we'll just see. This is one of my favorite things to have on my pantry shelves in the winter. We frequently turn it into chicken and rice soup. And I think I mentioned the other day, I really love, once I open a jar, to add some dill and lemon juice. It just adds a nice, bright, fresh flavor to it. And it's just so good. But we can be eating dinner in about 20 minutes. Pulling one of these jars off, it takes about that long to cook some rice. So simmer the soup in a pot while the rice cooks, and you have dinner in no time. I'm thinking I'm probably going to need about 2 more carrots. Maybe just 1. If you've never canned chicken soup before, the first time I made it, I thought my jars looked very empty of goodies. There's a very large broth ratio to the carrots and celery and chicken and onions. But by the time you add your noodles or your rice, it really is not that different than if you opened a can of soup. So I think it just looks funny because you don't have your starchy ingredient in the jar. So it looks like your ratios are kind of off. But that's one of those live and learn things. I didn't know until I experienced it. Although I will tell you, because I will link the recipe below. It's on the Ball Canning website. The picture they have on their website makes the jar look a lot more full of goodies than the actual ingredient quantities they call for in the recipe actually fills the jars up. So that could be confusing to people. All right, that's just perfect. So I'm going to pop this into a pot so I can have my measuring cup back, and then I'm going to get to chopping celery. My celery's all washed up, so I'm going to get it chopped up. Celery is one of those things that's on my list of things I would like to learn how to grow. I don't really know how it grows here in the South. I see people who live in cooler climates grow it through the summer, but I don't know if that will work here. I need to do some research because I really would like to grow all the things that we use vegetable-wise that will grow where we live. I mean, there are things we like to eat that are never going to be things we can grow here, right? If we can grow them, the less stuff that has to come from the grocery store, the better. For now, I have grocery store celery. And also grocery store carrots. I don't think I mentioned that. I've never grown carrots in the fall that succeeded. I don't think. I normally grow carrots in the spring, and they have done pretty well for me. But I did not have luck this year. I was using older seeds and didn't have great germination. So next year, I will start carrots with fresh seeds. Someday we're going to get to make this soup with homegrown carrots and celery. That's a goal. Oh, that's good. So now I just need 1 3/4 cup of onion chopped up. Oh no, I'm dreading this, you guys. These onions have been the bane of my existence. Every time I cut one, they are just the juiciest, most tear-inducing onions I've encountered in a very long time. And I think, being someone who wears glasses, my glasses help hold the fumes in close to my face. I normally have to walk away and take the glasses off when I get too teary-eyed I can't see. It's starting. It took a minute. I thought maybe I was going to escape, but no such luck. I don't need a whole onion, but oh man, maybe about 1/4 of an onion. Oh yeah, that's perfect. I'm gonna have to take a minute, clean up the onions, and let my eyes clear because I'm having trouble seeing through the tears. So the last ingredient I need to add besides broth to our chicken soup is the chicken. And I need about 5¼ cups of chicken. The recipe on the website is for 4 quarts of chicken soup. I have adjusted my ingredients so that I can do a full canner load of 7 quarts. That does make things a little bit awkward with some of the numbers on the veggies and such, but it takes so long to can that I'm reluctant to not have a full canner load. Okay, so now we're just waiting on our broth. This amount of product gets 4 cups of broth per jar. So 28 cups, I believe. And so there's still a little bit of time left on the broth, so we'll wait on that. But while I'm waiting on that, I can go ahead and get jars ready and get all of this chicken that's left over jarred up to go through the pressure canner, because I'm just going to can this as plain chicken, and then we can use it in various recipes whenever we need some quick chicken. Got everything ready to fill the jars with chicken. So my hands are nice and washed. I'm just going to use my hands for this. But we need to leave a 1¼ inch headspace in these jars. So let me check. Yep, that's about right. So we'll see how many jars we get. My bowl says we have about 4 quarts. Over the top of this chicken, we're going to pour some of our broth. We're doing the hot pack method where you pour hot broth over the meat and can it. But whether you can raw or cooked chicken, the canning time is the same. The only difference is if you do chicken with bones or no bones. And sort of interestingly to me, chicken with bones cans for less time than chicken that's had its bones removed. I suspect, but I don't know. If you know, let me know. But I'm guessing that maybe the bones are a better conductor of heat, and so the jars heat through more thoroughly when there's bones faster. I'm totally spitballing here though. That is just a guess. I don't think I realized I was going to get this much chicken from these 5 chickens. I'm very excited to have all of this on my pantry shelf. We'll make chili, various soups. What else? We'll throw it into pasta dishes. Really just anywhere you would use chicken and other places. It's great for chicken salad. So just a really versatile, great thing to have on your shelves. I am definitely going to have a couple more jars. That's a fantastic problem to have. I'm going to go wash my hands and grab a few more jars. All right, friends, if you have been here for other videos, you've probably seen me do this. I like to use my fat separator for ladling out my broth. So that's what we're going to do here, because we are going to pour hot broth over the top of all that canned chicken. I guess it's jarred up chicken at the moment. And we will add our broth, clean the rims of our jars, and get them into the canner. All right, so I'm gonna pour this hot broth over our chicken. Because this is definitely a chunky product, we definitely want to be debubble. Want to check our headspace. We're good there. Now, one of the things that's important when you're canning something that can have some fat in it is that you want to wipe your rims with a little bit of vinegar, just to make sure there's no fat and so that your lid will seal well. So we'll get our lid on. And this one's ready to go in our canner. I don't know if we've ever talked about this here on my channel before. One of my favorite things about pressure canning is that with pint jars, at least in the Presto canners, you can double layer your jars. And so I'm going to be able to fit all of those 10 jars of chicken in here. If it was something I was water bath canning, I would have to do multiple batches. That is fantastic. All of my jars are in the canner now, so get our lid on and get this going. We're gonna wait for this to steam. It needs to steam out of this vent for about 10 minutes, and then we can put our weight on. So now that the canner load of chicken is all on and going, we can add our broth to our chicken soup, and it needs to simmer for about 30 minutes. It's going to take longer than 30 minutes for this to can. So once it has simmered the correct amount of time, I'll just turn it down to a low temperature and let it sit here for a while. It's soup. It's going to be fine if it cooks longer. So I am doing this differently than the directions call for. I have this huge pot of broth here, and all of the broth that needs to go in the chicken soup is not going to fit. So I'm going to add about half of it to simmer all of the meat and veggies. And then when I jar it up, I will add the rest of it. So I'm just adapting to make use of the size pots I have. I like to run my broth through a mesh strainer just to catch any bits. I forgot to do that with some of the broth I use for my chicken. Not a big deal. I ended up with like a couple of bits of peppercorn. It says you can add salt and pepper to your chicken soup. You guys remember, we added salt and pepper to our broth. And so I am not going to add those to the soup. When I open a jar, if it needs some, I can add it then. And so I'm just not worried about it at this point. This is why I chose to heat my soup with only half the broth, because my pot will not hold all of it. So now I just need to get this up to a simmer. Our chicken vented for its 10 minutes, and now I've got my 10-pound weight on here, and we're just waiting for it to start rocking, and then this is going to can for 75 minutes. If you were doing quarts, it would can for 90 minutes. So while that's going, I've got my soup in this pot. I've got it on a fairly low temperature since it's going to have to cook for so long, so it's not even come up to a simmer yet. But we'll just wait for the chicken to finish and we'll get our soup into jars, but we're making progress. I just pulled all my cans of chicken out of the canner. So now it's time to can up our chicken soup. I had my jars sitting here with hot water in them to help keep them warm since we're adding hot chicken soup. Now, I'm not going to show you filling all of these jars. Benny, get down. My cat is being very feisty because it's actually almost 10 o'clock at night and he's like, where's my dinner? But I thought I would show you guys how I do this. It's not really in the instructions to do it this way, but you have all of the goodies and then you have your broth. And as I mentioned earlier, I'm going to need to add more broth to these. But I like to go through with a slotted spoon and divide all of the vegetables and meat between the jars to make sure that's evenly distributed, and then add the broth just because I want to make sure we're getting a good amount in every jar. I don't want to end up at the end with some jars having a lot more than others, because when I first started canning, I did have that happen to me sometimes with things like soup recipes. So I'm just going to go through here and add a bit to each jar. We'll just try and keep them even. Our chicken soup is all canned up and ready to go. I also need to add a little bit of hot water to this after that round of chicken. There we go. This chicken soup is in quarts, so it's going to can for an hour and 30 minutes. So I'll see you back here when it's time to pull them out. It's the next morning, y'all. Or maybe I should say it's later in the morning because the chicken soup did not come out of the canner until a few minutes after 1 o'clock. I was in my jammies and ready to go to bed as soon as that happened. So I thought we should maybe just take stock of what all we got from those 5 chickens. So to start with, we got 10 pints of chicken. We got 7 quarts of chicken soup. I got a Tupperware full of shredded chicken. This came off of the carcasses that were in the broth. Now, I will tell you, it's a little bit drier. It's not necessarily something I would just want to sit down and eat just as is, but it makes a great chicken salad, and you wouldn't really notice that it's a little bit drier in that capacity. And then I also ended up with 4 extra quarts of broth. So that will go into my freeze dryer later today. But overall, this is a lot of food to put on the shelves from 5 rotisserie chickens. And if you've never thought about using rotisserie chickens in this way and you're a canner, I just thought it was worth sharing. So thanks for hanging out with me yesterday and I guess this morning now. And I am so glad you were here. I hope you have a wonderful day and I'll see you next time. Bye.